Welcome and thanks for tuning in. I'm Lynn Berger, host of Lynn Berger Interviews Remarkable People. Today I have the privilege of speaking with John Mogulescu, visionary and innovative leader at CUNY for 49 years, and now he is retired from his leadership roles at CUNY. His reputation is very much that of an innovator who has tried to keep the system in touch with the needs of New Yorkers. He has done a wonderful job of that, and you will hear about that in length during this interview. He has just published a book called The Dean of New Things, subtitled Bringing Change to CUNY and New York City. Technically, he's now Dean Emeritus of the School of Professional Studies at CUNY. Thank you so much, John, for all you've done in your career, and congratulations on your book release. So take me back to your earlier years. Did you know what you wanted to do?
Oh my goodness, no, Lynn. Thanks for having me here today. I appreciate it. I'm going to take you back to childhood. I grew up in Brooklyn. In Flatbush section of Brooklyn. Spent most of my time outside playing ball. Family of parents and my brother. And we were interested in sports and politics. And my parents were particularly interested in politics. Went to public schools. And I was a good athlete. And actually, I was a recruited athlete. I got recruited into college. I played basketball and tennis. I went to Brown University, and I graduated in 1968, which was this tumultuous time. And I really did not know what I wanted to do. I wound up teaching elementary school. Even though I was not prepared to be a teacher, I wound up teaching in Fort Greene section of Brooklyn, which at the time was a neighborhood largely black and poor, 6th grade. And spent 3 years teaching elementary school, really not knowing what I was doing, and also, though, believing that the kids had huge potential, but were not given the opportunity that they needed to have. And I struggled. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. You said a 49-year career at CUNY. Yes. 3 years of teaching was harder than anything I did after that. And after 3 years, the war in Vietnam was winding down. I had gotten a deferment to teach school, and I went to graduate school in social work. And
why did you choose social work?
Well, I thought I was going to be a clinical social worker, that I was going to work with people on an individual basis. Mm-hmm. But a year after starting that 2-year degree program, I realized I wanted to change the world. So I became a major in community organizing and program development. As part of a field placement, social work grad school, you go 3 days a week for a field placement. I was placed at New York City Community College, which was a community college of CUNY. Had no idea why I was placed there. It didn't make sense to me. I was a social worker. What was I doing at a community college? I had come from kind of an elite university, and now I was at a community college. And I walked in the door to meet my supervisor, and she came out. She looked kind of old to me. Obviously, I'm a lot older than she was now. And an hour later, I realized my life had changed. Her name was Fanny Eisenstein. She was brilliant. She was a visionary. She was in the area of continuing education, the non-credit arm of CUNY, that people did not pay that much attention to. Mostly it was about degrees. And this college, which became New York City College of Technology during a fiscal crisis, provided me with all kinds of opportunity. She sent me down to the Brooklyn House of Detention, the local detention jail, as a field placement assignment to organize the institution's first education program. Mm-hmm. They had 2,000 men in that institution waiting trial. I had never been inside a jail or a prison before, and I organized an adult literacy program for the men who were waiting trial. That first year as a student, I wrote a grant to the state. Miraculously, it was funded, And I then spent the next 3 years in that jail, basically every day, organizing and running a literacy program and high school equivalency program.
How was that for you, going into a jail for 3 years?
I was scared at first. I realized quickly who was in jail. I mean, it was largely black and brown people waiting trial. And some of them were waiting for months for not being able to meet bail at $250 or $500. Others were waiting trial for very serious crimes. And we ran this program, and we were, I thought, quite successful. I stayed at that college in the area of continuing ed after working in the jail from 1972 to 1985. And developing all sorts of programs: literacy, high school equivalency, second language, workforce training for senior citizens, and learned enormous amount about how programs, if done well, can change lives. And Fanny, was just this no-nonsense administrator who wanted you to try things and take risks, but at the same time, she could chew you out, never publicly, or if you were not doing things as well as you might. And she also was very detail-oriented, and so she made sure that you started meetings on time, that you returned phone calls or letters. This was way before for email and computers.
Right.
And by the time I left in 1985, I had become her deputy. I was hoping to become her replacement when she retired. I didn't get the job, but fortunately, I wound up at the system office of CUNY. As you may know, and the audience may know, CUNY is this huge university. Right now, it has 25 separate colleges and schools of professional kinds of studies. And I was in the system office, and in the, in the Office of Adult and Continuing Education. I was responsible for a lot of oversight, because the campuses had their own continuing ed programs. And we were a staff of maybe 6 or 7 people. I worked under a terrific supervisor, Regina Peruggi, and we began to build programs. And every time there was something related to social policy getting intersecting with education, we kind of jumped on the opportunity. So I think in 1986 or 87, Ronald Reagan, conservative president, had an amnesty program for people who had come here, what was called illegals. And we offered ESL classes, second language classes and civic classes, and got paid to do it. And then we hired somebody. We gradually, when Bill Clinton brought in welfare reform and changed the way public assistance worked, we were able to figure out how to get programs for public assistance recipients. And every time we got a program, we hired new people.
But so creative and flexible to the needs of New Yorkers.
We tried. And then John Kennedy Jr. approached the university, and he had a cause of people with developmental disabilities. And we began an institute related to that work, and we got money for that as well. And then gradually, we began to be noticed. What was a entity that was non-credit and in many respects was not viewed very much as an important part of the university, we showed that it was important. And by 1999, we had a new chancellor, and his name was Matthew Goldstein, and he was a true visionary. And he wanted to do new and different things. And by that time, our unit, which had started with 6 people, probably had over 200. And all funded through outside money, through grant-funded programs. And we were there to help the city solve problems. The chancellor also was not happy with graduation rates, particularly at our community colleges. And he said they had to be better. And he turned to us to try and figure out a program that might do that. And this was now 2004, 2005. We had already been involved with the city, working with the police department, and with other city agencies, HRA and others. And we began to build a program that ultimately became known as ASAP. And in fact, you mentioned earlier, you saw an ad for it on the subways.
Yes.
It started with 1,100 students. The overall graduation rate for three-year graduation rate for a 2-year degree was something like in the teens. And the chancellor promised Mayor Bloomberg a 50% graduation rate, and came back to a group of us and said, can you do this? And we were like, who knows? But we had gotten a good bit of money from Mayor Bloomberg to start a pilot program. And we measured the results very carefully. And that pilot program, which started at 1,100 students, then went to 4,000. And then when Mayor de Blasio came in, he gave us $77 million. He gave the university, baselined into the budget, to expand the program to 25,000 students over the next period of time. At the same time, Goldstein wanted to do other things. And so he and what was then Executive Vice Chancellor Louise Mira, now the president of the New York Historical Society, said we want a new school to serve adults. That would be nimble. We don't think we're serving adults as well as we should. And that school became the CUNY School of Professional Studies. He asked me to become the founding dean, but stay at the central office.
How did you do all this?
Well, I was surrounded by talented people. And leadership, you know, the thing you can do best is to hire people who make you look good, give them credit, and we did that. And every time we got a grant, we hired new people. And we weren't on what's called tax levy money for the most part. So he was interested in all kinds of things. So that school, which started with 0 students, 0 programs, no space, and no money, we built a school that over the next, you know, it started in 2003. I left the university in 2021. It is now recognized as a really wonderful place. It has about 4,200 degree students, serves about 30,000 non-credit students as well, working with virtually every city agency. And it became, in 2006, it built CUNY's first online degree programs.
How was that received initially?
Well, we were fortunate, because while there was faculty on every campus that were, you know, dabbling in online, there was no programs. And, you know, the vice chancellor at the time tried to get a couple campuses interested. They were not, and came to us, and we built the first 2 degree programs in online education. And then over the next period of time, we built 2 a year for the next 11, 12 years, and they were really good. The last 5 years, the School of Professional Studies was ranked anywhere between 8 in the country and 20 out of 360 programs.
Well, that's
in some of the largest universities, Ohio State, Penn State, University of Maryland, Purdue, and this small school as well. We did it well. We also, you know, did things that you would never think of for a university to do. There was a problem with immigrants having enough classes in the city to get second language classes. And the city approached us and gave us a lot of money to create a TV production company that then made videos and films related to language acquisition and city services. It was called We Are New York. And we formed our own ESL Productions, was what it was called.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And we did, you know, 9 half-hour videos about city services and also kind of language development. And actually, over the next administration with de Blasio, there were 9 more. And we won Emmys. We won a couple of local Emmys for that project. We opened a school in the Bronx for kids who had been, you know, excluded or had left the public school system. We called it CUNY Prep. and we got funding for that. We addressed issues of remediation at the university. The university had not been as successful as it might, not for lack of trying, lots of wonderful faculty, but it seemed to us that those who were the least prepared coming in from the public schools needed more to adjust to college.
Sure.
And we worked out a program called CUNY Start, which enabled students to defer their start at a community college for 6 months and get an intensive adjustment, kind of getting you ready for college.
Well, that's incredibly important. And you also had some programs for people to introduce them to work, is that correct?
Well, we did. All kinds of training programs related to the world of work. I was on the workforce board for any number of mayors, and we tried to provide programming that would lead to careers, particularly in the non-credit area. Some successful, some not. And we struggled because there's so many low-wage jobs in this city as well. We also did kind of oddball things, as I said. We brought in a theater company called the Creative Arts Team that uses theater as a medium to go into schools and health clinics, to use theater as a way of reaching out to people. So it could be, HIV education. It could be literacy education. It had a youth theater that it did. And we did a similar program in music called Harmony, in which a woman who started in one position had brought this little nonprofit to teach music and how to play music for kids in elementary school in neighborhoods that had schools that didn't have music programs.
And you attracted people and their attention stayed, and that's wonderful.
Well, that program now is on its own. It stayed with us for a number of years. Right before I left and retired, it went out as its own nonprofit. It's now at 21 locations and it serves about 3,000 young people and has a pipeline from very beginning students to now accomplished music folks as well. And at the same time, we were involved with, literacy and high school equivalency and second language and early childhood education. We were approached by the city to take over something called the Early Childhood Education Professional Development Institute.
Right.
And we hired a woman by the name of Sherry Cleary. She came, we were probably, we probably had a staff of 5 or 6. These foundations gave us money. She retired a year ago. She had a staff probably of 120 people. She brought in about $30 million in grants per year, was the co-chair of the Governor's Advisory on Early Childhood Education, and really worked very much on the mayor's pre-K initiative. And so we went wherever.
Anywhere,
yes,
right?
Yes,
you went
to
anywhere.
Some degree. But
and you always said yes, right?
We always said yes. That's exactly right.
So as you look back,
Yeah.
are you surprised about some of them, the results of some of them? When you
I am yes. I pinch myself. I think that how did this happen? Because higher ed is filled with people who are smart and talented, have PhDs, faculty, and we were kind of non-traditional. I have a degree, I have an MSW, and I was the Senior University Dean for Academic Affairs for the university, and we were filled with some people who had PhDs and others that didn't, but because we were largely grant supported, we had flexibility to hire who we wanted. We also had opposition to virtually everything we did.
Well, I read about that and I listened to your videos, and you had opposition, but you still came out there and...
We were lucky because for 13 years, from 1999 to 2012 or 13, Chancellor Goldstein ducked under the criticism, which often came from the faculty governance and some of the union folks. And we used faculty for everything we did, but we chose to work with those folks who were willing. And so, for example, not only did the chancellor look at ASAP as a project, but he asked us to start and build a new community college. And we put a team together. It was called, it actually was just called New Community College, but then we got funding from the Gutman Foundation, and it's now Gutman Community College. And again, it's located in Manhattan on 40th Street, and we started that from zero. And it is a highly functioning community college at CUNY. We also generated this huge amount of dollars, close to $100 million a year in soft money. And starting in 1999, and I'm jumping around a little bit here, we worked incredibly closely with the public schools of this city because Chancellor Goldstein recognized, and we did as well, we got 80% of our students from one system, very unlike most colleges and universities. And so we expanded a program called College Now, which provided opportunity for high school students to take credit classes from 2 campuses to 17 classes, and now serves over 20,000 students. We built what's called early college high schools. We built 20 early college high schools with funding from the Gates Foundation and also from the state.
What didn't you do that you wanted to do?
That's probably, you know, it sounds like I'm bragging.
No, I mean, it's not bragging. It's just very impressive how you were able to get all that done.
Well, you know, we said yes. We had talented people. We worked hard. We liked each other.
Oh, that's a big one, right?
Yeah. I mean, so by the time, you know, I left the central office in 2020, we probably had over 300 staff. And we had been recognized, you know, by foundations, by city and state agencies, by different chancellors. I worked with a bunch of chancellors. And, you know, not everything we tried worked.
Well, I mean, that would be impossible. But
well, you know, if you don't take risk, then everything is the same.
Right.
And CUNY, as good as it was, needed to be better. And we had staff who believed that, came up with ideas. Sometimes it came from others. Sometimes it came from city and state agencies. And so even things like, you know, Mayor Bloomberg wanted a few more specialized high schools, and you know, like Stuyvesant and Bronx Science. And he said, but I need them, this was, I don't know, March or April, I need them to open in September. And we worked with the Department of Ed, and we opened 3 specialized high schools, the School for American Studies up at Lehman College in the Bronx, and a math science school at City College, and another math science college at York. And those are 3 beautifully run and wonderful schools. Now they are, kind of exam schools. The early college high schools that I talked about are more open enrollment type high schools, and also, you know, wonderfully successful.
Now I want to ask you a couple of questions
Please.
here, because I don't want I want people to get the most out of this interview.
Okay.
What as you look back, what advice would you give to individuals in your field, as well as maybe individuals not in this field, but what have you learned? What do you share with people?
Yeah, no. Well, again, I said it 3 times, but say yes to opportunity. Try and figure out who you're reporting to, you know, and your supervisor. I've been incredibly fortunate because I worked with a lot of people who supported me, ducked under criticism, were able to take risks.
Right.
Probably most important, if you get the opportunity to hire people, hire good people.
Yes.
And not worry that they're smarter than you are.
That is good advice.
Yeah, and I was surrounded by really talented, smart people who made me look good.
I want to give a minute or so to this book by what motivated you to write this book. And I read the book. I learned a lot. And I can't say I remember everything because there was so much that happened, but I kind of got the gist. What motivated you to write that book, to this book?
A couple of things. You know, in 2013, I was asked by a CUNY distinguished professor named Jerry Markowitz to do an oral history. He thought my story was so unusual that you needed to tell it. And he sat down with me for a year and a half, interviewed me, and we did this oral history. So that was kind of the framework for it. And when I retired, a lot of people said, you know, how did this group of unusual, non-credentialed educators change New York and change the CUNY? You should write about it. Now, I'm not a writer. I was a program person. I wasn't an academic. But I spoke to a number of people, and they said, just start writing and see if you like it.
Did you like it initially?
I didn't say it was hard work. Writing is
Writing's
really hard. But I was fairly disciplined. And as I wrote the first chapters, I thought they sounded okay, and that I really did have a story to tell, and that the story is about this incredible team. It's not really, you know, it's about me, but not about me. And it's a memoir plus. It's about, you know, why is it that institutions are so hard to change? And, you know, I always talk about this documentary called Hitsville, The Making of Motown, which is the story of Barry Gordy, who created Motown in Detroit. And he had a slogan, which was, throughout the movie, he talks about it, innovators stagnate.
Well, I think you surely are an innovator. And we have about a minute left.
Oh, okay.
Was there anything you felt you needed to say that you didn't get to say?
Oh, I don't know.
You said a lot.
Probably lots of stuff. But, you know, the one thing is, I had this wonderful career. I didn't enjoy every...
Well, you did a very good job at this career. I mean...
Well, I didn't enjoy every moment, but I look back, I go on the subway, I see an ad, or I bump into someone at a talk, and they come up and they said, you know, I was in CUNY Start, I was in ASAP, they changed my life.
Well, that says it all, right?
And even going back to my elementary school days, there are a couple of students that I'm still in touch with, and you know, and I didn't know what I was doing as a teacher at the time.
I can't thank you enough. Your career is so impressive. The energy, the enthusiasm makes me feel excited about the work you did. So thank you so much, John, and thank you for all that you've done for the city of New York.
Thank you, Lynn. I've enjoyed the interview very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.